Welcome back to Punchline Protocol, the place where we decode the myths the world takes for granted. And today, we enter December, a month that somehow convinces entire nations to pause their cynicism, forgive their stress, and perform the same rituals as if the past 11 months never happened. Every year, the world transforms, not because anything changes, but because the story changes. The lights get warmer, the streets get softer, and suddenly, the chaos of life feels rehearsed. December isn't a holiday. It's a carefully engineered atmosphere, a script we follow without remembering who wrote it. So tonight, we're asking not what is Christmas, but who built this feeling? Because behind every ritual, every tradition, and every moment of holiday magic, there are mythmakers. Let's begin. Every year, something almost supernatural happens. The same streets, the same shops, the same faces all suddenly feel different. Not because the world changed, but because December told it to. It's the only month where entire societies agree to behave according to a shared emotional script. We soften our tone, we decorate our surroundings, we pretend time hasn't beaten us as badly as it did. We perform nostalgia like it's a civic duty. December is not a holiday. It's a reset button that reprograms our behavior with lights, music, and ritual. And the strangest part, we never question who built this script or why it works so perfectly. That's the story we're about to decode. Before we go any further, a quick disclaimer. This episode isn't about criticizing anyone's beliefs, traditions, or culture. Christmas means different things to different people, and that meaning is valid. What we're exploring here is not the spiritual side of the holiday, but the cultural machinery that built the modern December experience we all participate in. This is mythology, not theology. Analysis, not judgment. A look at how stories shape societies and how societies shape us in return. If the holiday brings you warmth, hold on to that. We're just here to study the architecture behind it. You have no idea how carefully I'm wording this. One wrong metaphor, and YouTube thinks I'm starting a war against Santa Claus, which, to be fair, would be the shortest conflict in history. Man would fold instantly. But seriously, Punchline Protocol handles the myth with gloves made of respect and sarcasm. If you want the version where we talk about how corporations and certain very famous families rewrote half the holiday, that's waiting in Dark Side Protocol's basement. All right, back to our scheduled myth dissection. Modern Christmas feels ancient, timeless, sacred, as if it descended fully formed from the sky, wrapped in warm lights and sentimental music. But the truth is far less mystical. Christmas, as we know it today, is not a single tradition. It is a patchwork, a fusion of rituals, stories, and cultural inventions stitched together across centuries by empires, artists, merchants, and anyone with enough influence to decide what joy should look like. The winter feast predates Christianity. The gift-giving predates Santa. The tree predates both. And the emotional tone, that cinematic warmth we all recognize, is barely older than your grandparents. December didn't inherit a holiday. It inherited a construction project, a carefully blended mix of myth, psychology, and social engineering that eventually solidified into something the world now calls tradition. Christmas wasn't born. It was assembled. And once you see that, everything else in this month starts to look very different. For all the talk about tradition, the Christmas most of us celebrate today was not shaped by prophets or saints. It was shaped by companies. The emotional blueprint of December didn't emerge from ancient rituals. It came from advertising campaigns, department stores, printing houses, and the newly industrialized dream factories of the early 20th century. Hallmark taught the world how to feel Christmas. Macy's taught the world how to shop Christmas. Coca-Cola taught the world how to see Christmas. And Hollywood did the rest. Corporations didn't just support the holiday, they rewired it. They standardized its colors, its symbols, its rituals, its emotional tone. The modern Christmas isn't a tradition passed down through generations. It's a brand identity refined over decades by people who understood one thing better than anyone. If you control December, you control the year's final emotion. And once an emotion becomes a product, you never stop selling it. If corporations built the structure of modern Christmas, Hollywood filled it with emotion. The holiday feeling the world recognizes today, the glow, the warmth, the sense of gentle nostalgia, didn't come from ancient sacred texts. It came from movies. Cinema didn't just portray Christmas, it defined it. The snow that always falls at the perfect moment. The lights that shimmer exactly when the music swells. The family reconciliation timed to the final act. The quiet miracle wrapped in soft focus and delivered as if by fate. These images became so iconic, so consistent, so emotionally precise that people started expecting real life to match Hollywood's script. We don't celebrate Christmas as it is. We celebrate Christmas as it was filmed. And once a story becomes a feeling, it becomes a standard. Hollywood didn't document December, it programmed it. We like to pretend that holiday rituals are ancient, sacred, unchanging. But most rituals aren't ancient. They're psychological. A ritual is a script, a set of actions we repeat not because they're necessary, but because they make us feel like reality is still manageable. Putting up a tree, lighting the same candles, playing the same songs, cooking the same meals, repeating the same stories every December as if they were encrypted into our DNA. Rituals don't stabilize the world, they stabilize us. They give us a sense of continuity in a life that rarely offers any, a sense of structure in a year that probably didn't go to plan, a sense of belonging in a time when we quietly fear isolation. Rituals aren't proof of tradition. They're proof of our need to feel that something, anything, still follows a pattern. That's the real magic of December. Not supernatural joy, but psychological order. If December had a flavor, it wouldn't be cinnamon or gingerbread. It would be nostalgia. Nostalgia is the most powerful emotional technology ever invented. It doesn't just recall the past, it rewrites it. It takes ordinary moments, filters them through memory, softens the edges, brightens the colors, and presents them back to us as something we've lost and must reclaim. Holiday nostalgia works the same way. We aren't longing for childhood, we're longing for the edited version of childhood, the one that never included stress, family chaos, or the year someone forgot to buy batteries for your gift. Nostalgia makes December feel magical because it erases everything that made previous Decembers painful. It's not a memory, it's a negotiation with reality, and the world knows how to use it. Marketers use it, filmmakers use it, corporations use it, even governments use it because a nostalgic population is easier to guide than a present one. Nostalgia is not sweetness, it's strategy. Before we go deeper, let me ask you something. What part of December feels real to you? And what part feels assigned? The warmth? The nostalgia? The rituals? Or that strange pressure to act happier than you actually feel? Tell me in the comments. I read everything. And December is the month when your answers say more about the holiday than the holiday says about itself. And if you're into this kind of myth-breaking storytelling, make sure you're subscribed. We're just getting started. You know what's funny? Every December, people pretend their lives are perfectly curated holiday posters, while quietly Googling, "Why am I overwhelmed?" during the holidays. If you've ever felt like December is a performance and you're not sure who wrote your script, welcome to the club. Punchline explains the illusion. Dark Side explains the architecture. And the multiverse? Well, it collects the evidence. All right, back to the Mythmakers. December has a strange rule that no one remembers agreeing to. You're supposed to be happy, not just fine, not just functional, but visibly, socially, photogenically happy, on command. It doesn't matter how your year went, what you're dealing with, or whether life feels like a Jenga tower missing all the important pieces. In December, you perform joy because that's what the month demands. It's an emotional dress code. Smile for the photos. Laugh at the gatherings. Act grateful. Act soft. Act festive. Act like the last 11 months didn't chew you up and spit you out. The myth of mandatory happiness isn't about joy, it's about conformity. A society that tells everyone to be cheerful isn't chasing happiness, it's chasing uniform emotional behavior. Because synchronized joy is easier to manage than unpredictable honesty. And so December becomes a stage, the world becomes an audience, and we all become actors trying to convince each other that everything is brighter than it really is. That warm feeling everyone talks about in December, the glow, the comfort, the softness, is not an emotion. It's a design choice. Warmth is manufactured long before you feel it. The lights are warmer, the colors are deeper, the music is slower, the textures are softer. Even the commercials suddenly whisper instead of shout. You aren't reacting to the season, you're reacting to a carefully engineered sensory environment built to make you feel safe, nostalgic, and emotionally open. Candlelight triggers relaxation, cinnamon triggers memory, low brass instruments trigger sentimentality, soft string melodies trigger vulnerability. It's not magic, it's psychology with better branding. And once all these elements stack together, you don't just feel warm, you feel guided into warmth. December isn't a season. It's a sensory script written by people who understood that if you control how a population feels, you quietly control how it behaves. Warmth isn't a miracle. Warmth is architecture. Every December, the world repeats the same promise. This is the month we come together. Families gather. Friends reconnect. People who ignored each other all year suddenly exchange gifts as if emotional proximity can be scheduled like a dentist appointment. But here's the quiet truth. December doesn't create togetherness. It performs it. The holiday season offers a temporary script where everyone is encouraged to pretend they are part of a unified story, a story of harmony, forgiveness, and shared warmth. Not because relationships have changed, but because the context has. The decorations, the music, the rituals, the nostalgia, they work together to create a social pressure stronger than any personal hesitation. For a few carefully curated days, everybody plays the same role. We are fine, we care about each other, we always have. But the illusion of togetherness isn't deception, it's survival. Humans need belonging. Even if the belonging lasts only long enough to get through the darkest part of the year, December doesn't fix relationships. It stages them in a way that makes loneliness feel a little less sharp. And that's why the illusion works. One of the most powerful functions of December is its ability to make reality feel suspended. Bills still exist. Responsibilities still exist. Stress, doubt, fear, exhaustion. None of it actually disappears. But for 1 month, the world quietly agrees to look the other way. December becomes a sanctioned escape hatch, a cultural permission slip to stop thinking about everything that overwhelmed you the rest of the year. We dim the lights so the problems look smaller. We amplify nostalgia so regret stays quiet. We surround ourselves with rituals so uncertainty feels less threatening. It's not denial, it's managed avoidance, a psychological timeout for a species that spent 11 months trying to hold itself together. And the brilliance of this system is that it works. December doesn't fix our lives. It simply gives us the illusion that we're allowed to rest from being overwhelmed by them. Sometimes illusion is enough to get through the month. There's a moment when a story stops being a story and becomes something far stronger. A memory you never actually lived, but still feel as if you did. That is the final stage of the Christmas myth. We remember the holiday not as it was, but as the myth told us it should be. We remember cozy fireplaces we never sat beside. We remember perfect family dinners that never happened. We remember childhood magic that was mostly borrowed from movies, commercials, and the collective imagination. And once a myth becomes memory, it stops being optional. It becomes a part of who we think we are. That's why people defend Christmas so intensely. Not because the rituals are ancient, but because the identity they produce feels personal, emotional, almost sacred. We aren't protecting the tradition, we're protecting the version of ourselves that tradition allows us to believe in. Myth becomes memory, memory becomes identity, and identity becomes the reason the myth survives another year. When you peel back the layers of December, the rituals, the nostalgia, the sensory design, the emotional programming, you realize something surprising. The holiday didn't shape people. People shaped the holiday. Generation after generation added stories, symbols, gestures, and meaning, until the myth became large enough to hold everyone for a moment in the same emotional frame. Christmas isn't ancient. It isn't pure. It isn't even consistent, but it works because it offers humanity something we rarely get from the rest of the year: a chance, however temporary, however imperfect, to step outside the noise and practice being the version of ourselves we wish we were more often. Myths don't survive because they're true. Myths survive because they're needed, and that's why December returns stronger every year. If this story made you look at December a little differently, good. Myths aren't meant to be destroyed. They're meant to be understood. And if you enjoy this kind of intelligent satire, where culture gets decoded and the familiar becomes fascinating, make sure you subscribe to Punchline Protocol. There's a lot more to explore in this universe. And for those who want to go deeper, beyond the myth and into the machinery, there's Dark Side Protocol, the other branch of our multiverse. Different tone, same purpose. A clear review of the systems shaping your world. If you've made it to the end, you're officially part of the small percentage of the internet that still has an attention span and a functioning sense of curiosity. Congratulations, you're already multiverse material. Punchline handles the illusions. Darkside handles the architecture. Both exist because of viewers like you who want more than noise, trends, and surface-level explanations. So if you want the extended, uncensored cuts, the versions built for minds, not algorithms, you know where the door to the Protocol Multiverse is. All right, lights out, holiday mode suspended, back to reality, at least until the next myth. Thanks for watching. See you in the next reality.